LawBreakers is a multiplayer-only 5 vs 5 team-based shooter. Building a multiplayer game from scratch with all the balancing, tuning, and server support is an absolutely insane job, and at some point, we have to open it up. It's also vital for our game designers to learn and understand how people are actually playing it. From it being balanced to completely broken, we can test it all day in the studio, but it's only when players out in the wild get a hold of it is when we can truly start tuning. Our design team can share more.
Well, the LawBreakers Alpha for us as game designers is a way for us to finally get to see the game in our players' hands. We've been playing the game as developers for the last year and a half, learning how to maximize it and optimize it and exploit it in our way, but it's never going to be the same way a player does it. We finally get to see players interact with the game and give us back telemetry, which is behind the scenes data that we get to kind of observe and see where the balance problems are. And at the same time, we get to hear our players tell us whether or not they enjoy their experience and give us a perspective that we haven't had for the last, ever since the beginning of development.
I mean, making a multiplayer game, if player feedback is paramount, because if you don't grow the game with your players in a multiplayer environment, the game doesn't grow in general. We have to get as much player data as possible. We have to know how they're dying, where are they dying, where are the victims, where are the killers, how many people just use a certain weapon, do they even use the weapon? How are they using it? It's all that stuff all folds in just in the base gameplay part of things. And then we take the telemetry and we compare that with actual player feedback, so forum posts or just comments anywhere about the game, and we compare the two because it's all about appreciation is the player's feedback, and then there's the actual data that we should compare the appreciation to. Because some people could say, hey, the Badger is overpowered, and we're like, well, actually, its KD ratio is actually a little bit lower than probably what players think. So why is that? Why? Okay, how can we mitigate expectations in that way and then match it up, and the game becomes even better? Because then every single time you shoot or are killed by the Badger, you feel a lot better about it.
There are going to be systems that we haven't even released yet that still have to get created, actually implemented before we even get to test them out. But at the same time, we need our players to break our game. I mean, literally just bust on it every day, all day. As soon as the alpha is open, just go in there. It's okay to exploit the game at this point because it helps us find our flaws before we get to a point where we're happy to release it to a wider audience. We need to know that the game is actually working the way it should be working.
Making sure people can play the game when it comes out, since it's online only, is a massive task, and the alpha process is a part of that. Arjan Brucey, our COO, has done this numerous times with multiple games, and he can help explain.
So let me tell you about what the alpha process is for Bosky, right? It's really the first time we're getting the game into the hands of a lot of people, right, at the same time. And it's always critical that a launch of a game is kind of stable, right? Or trying to get it as stable as you can, right? I think it's kind of this dark art of game development where nobody's really able to do it, right? Even the biggest publishers and games out there, crash on day one, etc. And but alpha is kind of a way to kind of mitigate that, right? So can the server support 100, 1,000, 10,000, that kind of number of players, and from the backend, right? We call that the backend of the servers and the cloud and all that kind of stuff. And then the other thing there, the other technical aspect there is we're working on PC, right? And all PCs are different, right? There's probably no PC that's the same in the world. So it works on our kind of crazy workstations, with my crazy screens and all that. But does it work on your computer at home, right? Does it work on your older machine or your newer machine, right? Does it work with the bleeding edge? All that kind of stuff. So we need to kind of sample it across kind of a wide range of hardware and figure out if it actually is performing. And I think we would really like to get people's feedback, right? So if you have things that don't work, right? If you find issues, all that, use our forums, right? Tell us what you find, right? And we really want to get into a two-way conversation with you guys to figure out, how can we make this better, right? What can we improve in the game, before we actually start charging money for it. So that's the key thing.
Our goal with LawBreakers is to deliver the best multiplayer shooter experience imaginable, and we simply cannot do that unless we get you involved in the alpha. And hopefully now you have a better understanding of how an alpha works for a game studio. If you want to see more dev diaries, head over to the LawBreakers YouTube, and as always, follow @LawBreakers and @Bosky for the latest news and intel. For everybody at the studio, thank you for watching.